Recording.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2011 movie Red State.
Yes.
I forgot to change that. Red State. I do have the date right. Red State came out March 6, 2011 to basically no acclaim or interest.
Yeah, which is weird.
But also being like, I guess Kevin Smith kind of produced and released it himself. Because there is the weird opening credits just says the Harvey Boys present, which is the now I forget their names. Harvey Weinstein and his brother. Like that's basically, but it wasn't like Miramax or what would be at this time the Weinstein Company. It was just called the Harvey Boys. So I don't know what that's about. I didn't look it up.
Yeah, I know this had like weird distribution because it was basically like the rights to distribute it are for sale. We're just going to throw it out at film festivals, and then you can decide, what you want to do. And then it was one of the like early internet things too.
Yeah.
Where it came out, it was mainly an internet thing, but I remember this was one of the first ones that I paid attention to that did this. So, which was interesting.
Well, I remember like Mark Cuban had like a sort of like a release everywhere all at once model that they started with, where it's like it's going to be in theaters and video on demand all at the same time. So I think this was kind of like one of those things, maybe.
Okay.
But wasn't through Mark Cuban's company, which I forget what it was, but he did that a lot with Steven Soderbergh's like kind of side projects. They did that all the time.
Oh, okay.
Now they do that like every once in a while. I mean, during the pandemic, that was like everything. It's like, oh, this is cool. I get to see like summer movies at home. And my ticket price is, one of these streaming services I already pay for.
Yeah.
Of course, directed by Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith's best movie, and really one of the only ones I like, in my opinion. That's just me.
This is only like kind of like dramatic. Well, I don't know. His comedies he does now have like dramatic pauses to them that are now kind of like, I guess if you like Kevin Smith is like fun, but that seems to be like the more like neutral critics are like just they hate all this stuff now, because this is like ostensibly a great movie that just got overlooked or underlooked, however you say it. And Kevin Smith went on to basically direct probably from here the worst movies of his career.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here. And I'm like, the thing that frustrates me about this, because I spent a lot, you're more of a Kevin Smith guy than me, but I did appreciate his podcasts. I appreciate his evening with, his conversational style. He sounds like someone who would be genuinely fun to talk to and know, but it's also very frustrating because it's like, oh, you can do this. Yeah. Like I can watch this for an hour and a half or however long it was and just be fully like engaged. Not even putting tracks on a Panzer or whatever a normal thing. And I paid to watch this when it came out. We talked about this before, but it was a long time ago. But yeah, it's like I've so now twice I've watched this, been fully engaged the whole time, and find it hard to believe that that's like, oh, this is a Kevin Smith movie. Not only is it a Kevin Smith movie, he wrote it. I mean, it's not just he's trunking in on somebody else's thing. No, he wrote it. And it's like, well, he can make movies like this, and he should, because he has a dark sense of humor, and it comes through in this all the time.
Well, yeah, his friend Brian Johnson, who directed a movie called Vulgar, which is about like like a party clown that gets like gang raped and then goes on a killing spree.
There's some weird.
So yeah, he's a very dark individual. He's one of Kevin Smith's friends. He's on the Tell Him Steve Dave podcast. And he would talk about like the dark shit Kevin would write, but Kevin wouldn't never make it. And so this is kind of like the thing that got secreted away and he made once and never again. And I can kind of understand because Kevin Smith kind of has like a whole vibe to it. So like if you look at the movies he makes now, it's like in his vibe. It's like, I'm just having fun making movies, which is fine. but the movies suck, which is also fine. Like, so if you're a better person for making shitty movies, hey, if he kept on making Red State movies and just like his whole life fell apart, that wouldn't be good either. But so.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He's someone I genuinely like. I don't know him, and I never will. But he seems to, unless he's just a total like psychopath that can do this, there seems to be like a genuine human being there.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, I like this guy no matter what. So this isn't like a like or dislike thing. This is just like, oh, this is frustrating because this guy made actually a cool movie. And it's like, why can't you just do this? Just do this. I mean, look, you're not going to be Quentin Tarantino. You're not going to be John Ford. You're not going to be, you're not going to make the Wild Bunch like Peck and Paw, but this is good. This and the writing is like sharp. The dialogue is sharp. The acting is great. The cameras, it's all that in your face camera stuff, which, I mean, you have to have guys like Michael Parks and John Goodman to carry that off. That helps. But it's like, he did this. The Clerks guy did this. And the first Clerks was good, too.
Yeah.
Liked it.
Second Clerks is good also, but I think it's really good because it's like, why would you make a Clerks 2? And it is a great, funny movie, but it's also completely unnecessary, as almost all comedy sequels are.
Yeah.
And I haven't bothered to watch Clerks 3. There's some people say good things about it. Other people say it's garbage, so I haven't yet to imbibe in that yet. So
the only other one that I like that comes as close to that I like as much as this is Dogma. Isn't that weird? Because it's kind of like the same concepts of twisted.
Well, yeah, it just shows how good Kevin Smith is with religious stuff. Because he's not just making it up; he did the research.
Oh yeah, he's, like I said, a smart guy, no doubt. Kevin is completely capable. This is why the Weinstein brothers, everyone just backed this guy to the hilt. It's like, oh, he's capable, but it just never seems to. And I don't know if having the Weinsteins in your corner and
no, that doesn't work in your favor anymore.
But he didn't. He wasn't involved in that.
But yeah, I mean, and also Kevin Smith just had like a lot of poor timing because there's so many movies he made that became cult classics because they just either were ahead of their time or they just like missed the mark in a window where it seemed like any movie like this would make $100 million. And no movie he's ever made, I believe, has made $100 million. I think he got the closest with like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, made like 70 million or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that was like, oh, this is starting the victory parade. He can do it.
But also like
problems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all his movies make money because he shoots them incredibly cheaply. So
yeah.
So like, he makes money for people, even though his movies don't become blockbusters, and he has a devoted fan base. So, he can, and he just got into podcasting. It became more of his thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was into it before a lot of people that are a lot more famous at it now.
Yeah,
Kevin Smith's been podcasting for a long time because it's his natural element.
Yeah,
that all the evenings with was just a trial balloon for his podcast. And Kevin Smith can make when you can make Scott Mosier seem dynamic and fun. There's nothing wrong with Scott Mosier. He is just like, he seems to be like a technical guy.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh no, you put him in a room with Kevin Smith and they're wildly entertaining because of Kevin Smith. That's the genius of Kevin Smith. That that's what works in his podcast. But
cinematographer for this movie is David Klein, who is long work. He shot Clerks, and then basically every kind of like smaller movie he was allowed to shoot with Kevin Smith, but anytime he did something bigger, like the Weinsteins would make them get like a more renowned cinematographer for his bigger movies.
That's gotta make you feel good.
Yeah. But David Klein did go on to, when he wasn't working on Smith, he worked a lot in TV and did smaller movies and stuff. Like his credits showing that he shot over half the whole series of Homeland. He shot that series.
Oh wow, okay.
He shot like 55 episodes of Homeland. Yeah. So even though he was just kind of an indie guy and kind of like Kevin's friend or whatever, he went out and did the work, man. And they shot, and this was a movie they shot it all on the red camera. So it was kind of one of those like, you know, digital camera movies, which I don't think you can like. I mean, this looks better than 28 Days Later, so it's like better cameras. So you can't be like, oh, it's all digital. And like, no, this movie looks pretty good. So, but it's also
Yeah,
on
it
a
looks
budget. So,
yeah, well, $1.5 million or something. So like, yeah, it looks good.
Cast Michael Parks, Melissa Leo, and John Goodman, and a bunch of other Kevin Smith's friends. Which is kind of like how Kevin Smith makes movies. Like, this should be better, right? Because he's able to command like cat a cast that's like crazy, but they just people love Kevin Smith, and so they just do him favors. So like anytime there's like a movie packed full of like stars in a Kevin Smith movie, it's like, oh, every one of those people are working for scale. That's why his movies are so cheap, is that like they're not paying Ben Affleck $20 million to be in this movie. Ben Affleck's doing Kevin Smith a favor to do this movie. Yeah. But yeah, well, I guess yeah, that's all the big stuff. So yeah, we'll get into. Oh well, yeah, I guess you have sort of history, well, yeah, I don't even remember how this was released. I think I just bought the DVD or something, which I don't know where it went, because weirdly when we were looking this up, this is only streaming on Roku. It's not purchasable, and the DVD seems to be out of print or whatever. So yeah, that's all weird. But that could be because Kevin Smith owns the rights and they've just like decided not to do anything with it. So it's only on Roku, which basically, I don't know, it's weird. Like, you don't have to pay Roku to watch it. You just have to have an account. It's super weird. And that's the only way you can watch this movie.
Strange. I didn't pay to watch it, but I had fun signing in to try to watch it.
Yeah, because I was gonna like, well, obviously, you know, all Kevin Smith movies have an audio commentary, so I'll just pick it up. But then it was just weird. It was weird to try to acquire the DVD, so I didn't get. So, but I think I've listened to audio commentary a couple times or once before, so I'll try to remember that stuff. So we have Act 1. We start off with black and white titles, like I said before. It just says the Harvey Boys present Red State. That's the titles you have. So this is some weird third-party Weinstein release company or whatever. This is before the Weinsteins, or just Harvey, was persona non grata and not in jail. So
yeah.
I wrote some college kid and his mom or something. They're like they're trying to get around a religious people protesting a gay person's funeral. Although later on I find out, like, because I wrote like, is this college or high school? Because I cut to a class and it's like, oh, it's high school. So,
yeah.
Because like, you know, like they have good actors and they're young, but they don't look like high schoolers. But you know, sometimes you gotta go for a better cast than the cast that looks right. So yeah, they're in a class. The teacher's like teaching them about government, or kind of, and then, you know, one of the kids comes in late, and the teacher kind of points it out. So they're talking about the 5 Points Church, which is like a far right church that even conservatives don't like, and this is pretty much based on like the Westboro Baptist Church, but like that still exists in this universe, and like these people are even crazier than those people. So
yeah, this is like, because didn't Kevin Smith like get to know the Westboro people to research for this?
I think, or yeah, I forget how I think there's some people that left that church, and then he screened the movie for them, and they're like, yeah, this is accurate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they also did. There's also some weird stuff in the trivia where like he knew those people were going to protest this movie, so like he had a counter protest. And then
I thought he showed up and protested with them with like a sign that says "God hates Kevin Smith," or
but he also did that on Dogma, so that might be conflated stories, or he just did the same thing over again.
It's funny either way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember on Dogma he was like, he found out people are protesting, so he went to go protest his own movie with them because he thought that was funny, and that was funny. So
yeah, that's great. Like when Sacha Baron Cohen was protesting with the Kazakhs, about Borat, saying horrible things like the movie was made by this Jew and we know they're terrible people. Like representing himself as a Kazakh, as Borat, and his people are like, hey, no, we're doing. You're making us look even dumber.
So you have the main character. Well, yeah, sort of the main character. The character we've been with the longest so far, Travis. Him and a group of his friends are like planning to get laid this weekend with some like chick they met online. So this is immediately becoming like the evil American Pie.
I forgot that Anna Gunn was his mom.
Yeah.
Because I only know her from
Breaking Bad.
I was like, oh, it's Anna Gunn. Wow, okay.
Well, here, yeah, I missed it because like, wait, I know who that is, but she has like a southern accent in this movie, and so it somehow hides her entire body and face from me. I can't remember like what time around Breaking Bad this would be, if it was around the same time or it was a little bit after, but there's actually a lot of people from Breaking Bad in this cast, so but yeah, also all these kids are dumb, so that also explains why they're high schoolers. So I talk about. I also mentioned Jacob Harlow was the gay kid who was killed, and that was the funeral from earlier. Travis gets the car, gets a car from his parents, and so they're driving along in the car, and they're all drinking. Nobody's taking responsibility, so they're going off to this house to go get laid. They clip a car on the side of the road, and then they pull over to look at it, and then a guy pops up, and then they run away scared. And it's like it's a couple of gay guys. So the boys run away to continue on their journey to get laid. And then the guy is I remember what his name. It's Stephen Root is one of the guys. He's the driver of the car.
Yeah. You find out he's the sheriff. Yeah.
Yeah. Later on, yeah. The kids pull up to a trailer. Melissa Leo is there. I almost know her from Homicide: Life on the Streets, but she's done tons of great performances. She's been nominated for Oscar a couple times. I can't remember if she won or not, but she does a great job in this movie too. So she's Sarah. She comes out. She invites him in to get up to the devil's business. And it's like, oh, she's like in her 50s or whatever. So this obviously isn't the profile they showed earlier, but they're like, oh well, let's get on with it.
Yeah, let's get it over with. You port in a storm,
Then we see Stephen Root pull into the sheriff's station. He's one of the gay guys from earlier, and it's revealed that he's the sheriff, Sheriff Winan. I'm not sure if he's how you say his name. It's Wynan, so I'm guessing Winan. So
yeah.
It could be Win or Winan, or I don't know. I'll say Winan. Because that's what he does. He whine.
It seems to be a thing, yeah.
And so he sends a deputy. This is Matt Jones, that's Badger from Breaking Bad, is his sheriff deputy or whatever, to go out and look for the kids because he describes the car. Although here he's dodging the thing. It's like, yeah, I wasn't blowing some guy in my car on the side of the road. He was like, yeah, I just saw his car and it clipped me. It's like, yeah, I don't have answers for you as to why that happened, but go look for it. Yeah, I also like that, like the deputy is like, hey man, why do I gotta do this shit? I'm only here this late because you got here late. And we come back to, and Sarah's like getting the boys drunk. They're all cramped together on a couch because they're inside this like half a trailer. It's like a trailer you like hitch up to a truck or something like that.
Yeah.
She tells them to go in the bedroom, get undressed. She gives them a couple extra beers from the fridge. They all pass out in the bedroom. So it's like, okay, well, they've been drugged. And you see some people take them away. So have that being the end of Act 1, which this all happens very quickly. Like this is like 10 minutes into the movie, all this happens.
Yeah.
Or not, maybe not even, it might be 5. Yeah. So we have Act 2. We have Jared, who's one of the kids, wakes up in a cage. The cage is covered in a blanket, and you can hear it being rolled towards a singing crowd. So you don't know what's going on because the camera's inside the cage with him. They're in the 5 Points Church. We have Abin Cooper, played by Michael Parks, which is his just magnificent performance by Michael Parks. It's well written for him, but he knocks it out of the park.
For anyone who doesn't know who Michael Parks is, watch From Dusk Till Dawn when he's the what is that, Texas State Trooper?
Yeah.
Talking in the liquor store with the guy at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do the dialogue. Actually, you can't do the dialogue, but it's great.
Yeah, Michael Parks is
him as an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's like definitely because I was written by Quentin Tarantino, and like he's used him in other stuff too. Like I think he showed up in Kill Bill as well. But yeah, it was definitely a guy that kind of Quentin Tarantino like rediscovered for everybody, and then here he kind of got like this is kind of like his first big main role. I don't know if he's ever like a main character in any other movie. Maybe early on, I'm not sure.
He has a very long history.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. I mean, he goes back to 1965. I mean.
Okay. But like, I'd almost say like this is like his biggest movie, even though it's not like financially, but like he is like the main.
Yeah, it's probably him as a main actor.
Although he's also worked together with Kevin on Tusk, which I never saw, but I know the scenario to it, but I just never bothered to go see it. Yeah, which I guess that is another dark, weird, but that's also supposed to be that was a dark comedy, so that maybe it's more along the lines with Red State. But as far as I can hear, like it's like the only thing about Tusk is just its weird premise and nothing else. So.
Yeah.
That was like one of Kevin Smith's like mini trilogy of we just talked about something on the podcast. Let's make a movie about it. Yeah. The other one was Yoga Hosers, which is absolutely terrible. So, and I don't think they made the third one. There was a great podcast they did where they're basically talking about like a 50-foot tall Jesus boxing the devil and the like the rapture or something like that. That was
I remember that one. Yeah,
but I don't think they ever made that movie. But I think that was
I never made it, huh? Okay.
As far as I know, but if you listen to Kevin Smith long enough, he'll tell you like every idea he's ever had is in production, and then like that never is, and then suddenly they all are. So. But that's just Kevin Smith. He talks a little too much. But that's also why people like him, because like nobody knows how Hollywood works, and here's a guy that's kind of spilling too much information. That's why people listen to him. It's like, oh, maybe he can help me get my career, and then no, it won't happen. So, Kevin Smith will not help your career. I'm sorry. So yeah, Abin Cooper, he's like holding a sermon. He's charismatic, but obviously dangerous and psychotic. Jared swears up a storm, but then he gets like stuck with a cattle prod or electric shock rod or something like that.
Yeah,
which was also kind of funny because the guy who does it is like a longtime like comedian and like comedic voice actor Ralph Garman, who is also like on a bunch of Kevin Smith's podcasts, and here he is being just an absolutely evil person.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of people who are like play evil in this movie that like that's the first time they've ever done it or ever did it, and they work so well. Like it's a weird thing. It's that thing about giving comedians like dramatic roles where sometimes they knock it out of the park because really they know how to tap into darkness better than anybody else.
Yeah.
There's a person that's like saran wrapped to a cross and covered in a blanket, but like that's kind of like out of sight right now. They're not really focusing on it.
Right.
Here we get like some great line, because remember this is 2011, but the guy says like this nation is going to hell, but they can't tell you why, which is basically like a statement about political correctness, which is funny because like that's obviously like something like. Yeah, it's like Fox News is like they're just like a bunch of dog whistles because they never say the thing that people want to hear. But Fox News is always wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter. But that's what they like to pretend.
Everyone just kind of runs around the edges of it. They don't come out and say it because because it's like, well, what's the alternative? Just just an apocalypse. What do you want? I mean, we know what you want. You just can't say it. So,
some of the lines I wrote down, like God doesn't love you unless you fear Him, which that's an old school thing.
The God that wiped out the world in the flood is not a loving God. It's a God of vengeance. It's a God that demands respect. Yeah, I've heard. I actually know people like this, so it's like it's not. I have met a lot of weird people.
Yeah, it's the people that focus a lot on the Old Testament as exclusively to the detriment of like, hey, there's a New Testament.
All they care about is the beginning of the Bible and the end.
Yeah,
the whole the thing that Jesus is talking about. The reason it's called Christianity from the word Christ. We're gonna skip all that. We're talking about today, sir, about the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. Treat those as you would be treated. No, we're gonna read. We're gonna read from the book of Leviticus. We're gonna study Levitical law and talk about how all the people you have to kill, and it's a lot. It's a lot of homework for everyone, but it's gonna be worth it because it's in the Bible, and it gives my life meaning. So. Yeah. Oh, I love those guys. All the Levitical law. It's like you might as well read the Torah. It's like it's just old school stuff.
But that's too Jewish for them. So.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. You point that out. It's like, hey, those two works are related. Don't be saying that. Christ would never be with the Jews. What? Christ, wait a minute. Hold on. Stop here. Come on. You're a blasphemer. Okay, cool. Based on conversations I've really had, I'm not spitballing that dialogue. I wish I was, but I'm not. Okay, my work here is.
It's a small congregation, but it's basically just like it's a very close knit family of generations of these people, and they've just managed to keep the hate going regardless. So. Power of hate goes on for generations and keeps them close together.
And that's actually the only way this would work.
Yeah,
because there's a humorous. I don't know if this was a subtext, and because Kevin Smith's kind of a bi-coastal guy. I don't think he's ever lived in the Midwest or the South.
No,
but here it's kind of a humorous subtext that people I think have a fear in the coastal areas that places like this are real and exist all over the South and the Midwest. It's like, well, they do, but there's like one example of it, and then they get wiped out by the government because they're doing and saying crazy stuff. But they think every small town in America has some version of this. That's what they call flyover country. It's like, well, this church is like this is what it's like everywhere. It's like no. But which I don't know if that humor is that's intended here or it's like, oh no, I'm just writing this as a guy who's never spent anytime anywhere where there's only like one building in town or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's basically just, this whole movie's, the title is says it all, where it's like this imagined fear of what the middle of America is. It's why it's called Red State, because like when they looked at like, the election results, it's like, look at all this red. And it's like, yeah, that's the same amount of people as all the blue. It just looks bigger. And it became this misnomer that like Fox News loves to point out. It's like, you can't stop all this red. It's like, that doesn't equate to fucking people. It's just land.
Yeah. The grass and shit isn't voting. The trees don't vote. There's a lower percentage of land in North America inhabited than there is Africa, right? You understand that, right? Like 75% of North America is not inhabited by anything. They think it's like you think there's like 10 billion people lived here if you look at those maps. It's like, no, that's a geographic thing. It doesn't represent people voting.
Or like
that wouldn't even that wouldn't adequately represent insects voting. There just aren't enough of them. But anyway.
Well, it's like look at Montana. It's like that's huge. So like, yeah, that's going to take up a big space on the map, and it's going to be colored red, but it has a population less than like the 8th biggest city in California, the entire state.
Well, it's one of those states that's like, it's a state with one representative and 2 senators. You know how hard you got to work to be a one representative? I think there might be more representatives now because it's grown.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were out there. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go to the hotel. Okay, see you later. It's like, what do you mean see you later? Oh, you're driving 70 miles. Like, I forgot my phone charger. All right, we'll catch you tomorrow. Because there's nothing. There's just big, wide open spaces where there's nothing. I don't know. I never knew what paid for those roads. It's like, how are they doing this?
But yeah, that's why it's called the red state. And even when this came out, that was like an old kind of outdated term, but it's still used today. So it's because it just
my favorite Jesus Land. I love Jesus Land because it basically that Jesus Land came about after I don't know if it was the first or second Bush election. Oh, don't we look back on those times? With the Republic was great, but yeah, it was like there was like the coasts and like parts of the Northeast through Michigan were like did not vote for Bush, and everything else below that was Jesus Land. And it's like everyone in those states is full of hate and rage, and they want to kill everyone in the Middle East, and they hate gay people. And it's like, yeah, so this is kind of, and this was 2011, so this was long after that.
Yeah. Abin here equates Satan with homosexuality, so I'm like, yeah, we all got to kill Satan. So it's like, okay, that's their main thing. But then but then immediately it's like, oh, they just want to kill anybody, and they just have excuse to kill whoever they want for whatever reason. So
yeah, the first goal is killing. The second goal is justifying.
Yes, exactly. Also, he's like hoping it's the end times because then like that'd be convenient for him because it mean he's right. So
yeah,
which is it's a long standing thing with people to like declare the end times, hoping that like if they're right, then they're gonna have even more followers. It's like, well, then the rest of the world will follow me if this is real.
So far, they're coming up snake. That's like declaring the end times are near is like a Ponzi scheme. It always runs out of gas because when the day comes and it's like it doesn't happen, then everyone's like, oh, unless you can really do that genius thing like with Heaven's Gate. It's like, well, no, the end time comes when we all kill ourselves. It's like, if you get everyone to go along with that, then technically, like, you achieve greatness. But unfortunately, everyone had to die. So, yeah, that's the problem with.
Go ahead.
No, I mean that's the problem with end times prophecy. Is eventually it's just a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme of doom because it always has to pay off. It never will. It can't. And if it does, like if you like, oh, God's vengeance is coming, and then an asteroid happens to hit the planet, like, well, who's going to remember you as being this inspired prophet? Everyone's dead. It's stupid. But it keeps that money coming.
Yeah. Well, here, Abin's even using like natural disasters as like evidence for his sermons. It's like,
yes.
It's like, see, like those babies wouldn't have died in that flood if there weren't gay people.
Yep. Yeah, I love that kind of like clear-eyed thinking. Like, oh yeah, he's onto something,
Then Cheyenne is told to gather all the children and leave. Cheyenne here is played by Carrie Bish, who I mostly know from *Halt and Catch Fire*, but she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Which was a nice touch in this movie. It's like, well, at least they're taking the kids out.
Yeah.
Brutally murder people.
Which is interesting. Like she's like on the cover of the movie holding an AK-47, which she never does in the movie. But it's a good cover.
I noticed that. I was like, huh.
But yeah, they have to gather their children and leave so the adults can have a special sermon just to themselves.
What does he say? He has a perfect line. It's like it's about to get adult in here. Or
something like that.
It's like, oh, that sounds like we're gonna have a porn shoot.
Like yeah.
Is that a double entendre or?
Well, they're gonna shoot. Yeah. There's a guy on the cross that's revealed. He's like saran wrapped to the cross. He has a ball gag in. He's crying deeply.
Bring out the gimp. Like what?
I'm not sure how much they left in the movie. I guess this guy was like literally having a panic attack here, and they thought he was just acting like extra hard.
You bring that. You bring that. It's like, sir, he just pissed his pants. Like, no, don't do that. We don't need that much realism. It's like, no, I think he's really like hyperventilating it. Well, keep it rolling.
Abbott says
David Lynch. We'll fix it. Go ahead, piss in your pants. Great. Keep it moving. Come on, everyone. Scene. Let's go. And the people like, I'll never work with that man again. There you go. David Lynch is like, he was great. I don't know what the problem was. Fuck it. Next scene. I'm an auteur. I'm kidding. I love David Lynch.
Abbott says the guy on the cross is gay. We don't know, but
said it.
Yeah. And so he equates him to an insect, and basically that's his justification as to why they can kill him, because like they aren't people. So
yeah, it's not a child of God. Kill away, which is what Jesus says. Never says. That's why they don't focus on the Jesus stuff. They have to be decent to each other.
So the men of the church gather around the cross guy. They wrap his head in plastic packaging wrap, and then like they pull a revolver out of a hollowed out Bible, and then like they put the gun directly to his head and kill him, and also like kind of like burns his hair a bit, and then you see the blood like stream through the saran wrap and stuff like that. Incredibly effective scene. Also, like in the background at the same time, Jared is like pulling the blanket through the cage, and so it just looks like this cloth butthole appears out of nowhere. It's like, this is incredibly unsettling and so simple. It's like this scene is genius, and
because the camera's like moving out onto the horror, and you see this blanket moving in an odd, you know what's going on, but it's like, that looks weird.
Yes.
Like if I woke up and saw that in the middle of the night, I would be afraid. Sucking into infinity. Whoa, I have to interpret this a little bit. What's going on?
And I remember it's like, and I remember Kevin Smith talked about it because he said like the effects budget on the movie is like $3,000, and they said like they wanted to like have like a goat's head on the guy's head before, and so they changed the saran wrap because it was just cheaper. It's like, well, not only was it cheaper, it's like way more effective. It's like, it's amazing like what they.
It was effective because when you shoot him in the head with apparently what will look like a low velocity like 38, it's like, oh, get the saran wrap on there so it doesn't like become a fountain of blood.
Yeah.
If you fired into his head with a 45 or high velocity 9mm, well, his face would collapse and it would just be like a fountain of. I don't know if they intended this. But it was they have a practical solution here. Just saran wrap that up so it doesn't bleed everywhere.
Well, also, like, production-wise, it was cleaner because, they had to pump the blood in there, and it just was contained by the saran wrap, so it was easier to do reshoots because they have to clean up everything.
Yeah.
Just like, it's like 8 problems all solved with this one simple and cheap solution.
And for most people, I have those saran wrap things they were using. In my earlier days, I used one of those in warehouses.
Yeah.
Like none of the equipment they had there is except the giant cross is like, oh, I could totally imagine like how this guy would feel, because always in the warehouse, it's like, let's saran wrap so and so. Like you can't move. It's not fun. But yeah, it's like, so all that stuff it was very unsettling just for those reasons.
Yeah. And then a trap door is opened up, and it's Billy Ray and Travis are down there. And so they drop the dead guy. Well, they just cut the saran wrap because he's attached to the cross, and he just falls into the hole.
Yeah.
And then the men of the church start wrapping Jared to the cross, and Jared is protesting that he's not gay, but Adam he can rationalize killing any way he wants to. So
yeah, because like he said, you destroyed your soul because you were willing to have, like, the 3 of you were willing to simultaneously have sex with that woman.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's why Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. It was always this kind of logic.
Which also like the interesting thing is like, because like, these kids are also just stupid assholes as well. But like, even early on in the movie, they're like, isn't that kind of gay that we're gonna have sex with a woman while you're like nearby? So like, even like, they even harbor like kind of the same sentiments that these guys do, but they're just kind of like more passive about it. For these guys are active about it. It's like, should I be angry about this? It's like, maybe not. These guys is like, no, we should murder because we're angry. So
yeah, this is our life. I mean, this is what gives us meaning. Is like, well, we're gonna kill people.
But like they show early on in the movie that these kids are just actually more on their side, but they're still gonna kill them anyways.
Yeah.
And then we cut to outside, and the deputy spots the car. Cut back in. Travis and Billy Ray are freaking out because there's now a dead guy next to him. So now they're like, "Oh, we're next." Here we have some creepy stuff because Travis says he can feel a bone sticking out of the dead guy because he had like a compound fracture from falling into the hole. And so they scoot closer so he can like cut the binds, because they're also wrapped in saran wrap, with like the guy's like bone sticking out of him. It's like, oh, yeah. They don't show it, but like you just have to give the idea. It's like, oh, I know what you're talking about. This is terrifying.
Yeah, I'm gonna release my bonds with the shattered femur that's sticking through this guy's leg.
Abin halts the sermon as they see like the deputy on the camera like snooping around, so he goes out to like intercept the deputy. They cut back. Billy Ray gets free of his binds and he runs away and abandons Travis. I mean, he says he's sorry a bunch, but you can, I mean, you know, you can imagine in this situation, and you're like a teenager. It's like you don't know how you're going to react to this kind of thing. Like you think you're going to die, you don't want to waste any time to escape, so you're not going to help. You're not going to help your lifelong friend of 5 years so, when you're only like 14 or whatever. So
right.
Understandable, but also it's like, that guy's a coward, but you understand. So then Billy Ray's getting chased by Caleb, that's played by Ralph Garman. Billy Ray finds his way to the church armory, and so he grabs an AK. Caleb like pushes in the door and he shoots Billy Ray in the head, killing him, but then Caleb gets shot with some of the from the AK that goes off when Billy Ray's like falling to the floor. He takes a couple shots to the chest. Caleb does. Then they cut back outside. Deputy Pete is calling in shots fired, and then Pete gets shot and killed with a shotgun. And then here we have like Evan gets on the sheriff radio, and he's like trying to blackmail the sheriff, like saying he has like pictures of him like having sex with guys like on the road, like on the roadside and stuff like that. So basically he's trying to blackmail him right now to like look the other way for just murdering his deputy and probably a bunch of other people too. He's also being racist too, because he's talking about like, like he apparently likes to, he likes Mexican gay men, and so, but says a lot of things along those lines. So
yeah, like basically they're like illegal immigrants that you're taking advantage of in some way.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes it even extra like just nasty here. They make him so he doesn't just hate gay people. But he especially hates like minority gay people. Like it's an extra,
The spicy gay people piss me off the most.
Then we have Sheriff Winden is like, he's loading up his revolver, contemplating suicide. Oh yeah, he's also like looking at a picture of his wife and crying.
Yeah,
or at least we presume is his wife. He's about to commit suicide, but then he like calls up a task force, and so we cut to John Goodman gets a call in the middle of the night. He's like an ATF agent. He talked about like how the church has been modifying weapons, and like that's what they're going to try to bust them on, but they couldn't get close to them, and so like the thing just went away. And we cut to, it says titles 4:47 a.m. And we cut away, and the men are carting away Caleb's body. Sarah sees this because they're husband and wife, and she's like crying over his body, but Abin like kind of grabs her and quotes the Bible to her to calm her down. Here, then he points over at Billy Ray saying like those two devils, we sent those two devils to hell. But that's when you realize like, wait, there wasn't two bodies there before. So that's when you know like, oh, Travis is playing a game. He's hiding under his dead friend's body to try to get out of there, which is like, quick thinking by him.
Yeah, I mean, just gotta live.
Sarah runs up and kicks Billy Ray's body, but then Abin takes her away. He's like singing a hymn. They pan back to the bodies, and Travis slowly gets up, so he's trying to get out of there. So he's rused his work so far. We cut back to John Goodman. He's like kind of like basically giving background on all the characters, like as like he's explaining it to some guy we don't know. You know, somebody above him is trying to explain the situation. But he's not talking to the sheriff. Like, I don't know like how everything got ping ponged around, but
well, the sheriff called the ATF.
Yeah.
Apparently, and it's never really like super clear. Like the ATF have been watching them. They knew who these guys were, but now the sheriff has made like some allegation that
they killed his deputy.
Yeah. There was something going on. So yeah, he's trying to get the ATF to do exactly what almost happened. Just go in there and kill everyone.
But yeah, here's to get background on the Coopers, which that's Abin's family, that they're like not only crazy, but they also have just a bunch of weapons. And because most of the church is like related to each other, like that's why they can never get anybody on the inside, is because they're all family essentially.
Yeah.
You can't just infiltrate family. Then we cut back to we have Travis is quietly making his way through the compound. He grabbed a rifle. We cut to Abin is singing and playing the piano. Everyone's gathered around in the church with Caleb's body being laid on the stage. You see Travis in the background. He's like walking up some stairs. He like takes aim at the congregation, but they don't know he's there. And then Travis spots Jared, and he's like kind of struck with guilt. Like, hey, I might have to save him, being that Bill Ray didn't do anything to save me. And then he just like takes off running through the compound looking for an exit. And he's like, you know, it's very well shot and done. And he's like, this guy's like, this actor greatly expresses panic at all times and can run really fast. So, he's looking for an exit, but just like all the doors are locked. He ends up finding an open door, and he just makes a full sprint out of the compound. And then all of a sudden he's shot and killed. And at this point, he was the main character of the movie. We started the movie with him, and now he's out of the movie, which is another very shocking moment for this movie.
Yeah.
But then they cut to like even the church people are kind of looking at each other, and even are like, hey, who shot him? Like, we didn't shoot him, even though we're chasing after him. And then it's revealed that there's like ATF agents and police and sheriff are out there. And Sheriff Wyden is the guy who shot Travis, which is, but Agent Keenan, that's John Goodman's character. He grabs Sheriff Wyden by the ear and like berates him and belittles him. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he takes his rifle away from him and then just like tells him to get back in his car. And so he just goes back in his car and cries, which he'll be spending the rest of the movie there doing that. Yeah. And then we have Agent Brooks, played by Kevin Pollak. He's like Keenan's wisecracking partner. Like,
right.
Yeah, they're fun for the moments they have.
Oh yeah.
The agents get some like outdated blueprints on the house, but like the Coopers have been building on the house since like the 20s, so like they're way outdated. Also, like the Coopers have like bought off and scared off all their neighbors. So they just keep growing because they harass their neighbors until they just leave, and like they get the land cheap or whatever. Agent Keenan gets on the megaphone. And he says like they're here to execute a search warrant. And then there's a long pause, and then Agent Brooks just gets his face blown off. Just half his face just blows up, and he like as the eye that's left kind of looks shocked into the camera, and then he falls out of camera view, and he's gone from the movie. So, which is like great, like because
Kevin Pollak was in the movie for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
essentially.
And like even though they have like barely any dialogue with the it looks like okay, well like him and John Goodman are gonna pair up, and then like so it's even though this character is just introduced and then just killed, it's still shocking because like, oh man, you could just imagine the rest of the movie with them, and you don't get it.
No, you want that. because the John Goodman character seems, he seems like the only decent guy in the movie, or at least not, maybe not decent, but
he's not decent, but he's regretful of the things that happened, and he knows he's a part of it. But
and he is living in reality to a certain extent. Like he's kind of the center of the movie. But
yeah, which is interesting because effectively a character who's introduced in the middle of the movie carries the movie the rest of the way.
And he does. I wonder how much like direction he got in scripting. Because I wonder with him and Michael Parks, was it just kind of like, hey, sort of do your thing?
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of like, oh yeah, he's just taking over the scene. With both Michael Parks and John Goodman, it's like, oh, they're just larger than life actors. And they're really like, they make sense here.
Yeah, I can't remember because I know Kevin Smith is a real stickler for sticking to the script.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure, but obviously it seems like like these guys are gonna kind of outstrip Kevin Smith. But I do know, like with Michael Parks, like a lot of like the hymns and stuff he was singing, like he used to be like a country singer or something like that.
Yeah, that guy seemed to have his own vibe with that. Like, oh, this was something he's riffing.
Yeah,
this part of character.
So like whenever he starts singing, that's when I feel like, okay, that's not Kevin Smith involved, but Kevin Smith is allowing that in between his dialogue.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, but that's what it feels like. Yeah, it feels like, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we didn't get the like commentary, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Buy the DVD for $5,000.
Yeah.
Or it's not available.
I mean, I bought the movie once before, and so I know I've listened to the commentary like one time. So, but I don't remember stuff about that.
I remember hearing about it on Smodcast. Like,
yeah.
I used to listen to that all the time, but I can't remember any of that stuff. I've since, like, now all I listen to is like grim, like financial stuff and like the future apocalypse of the world. Like, those are my podcasts now. I probably need to listen to fun stuff.
So shootout kicks off, and Keenan doesn't want to just charge into the compound and kill everyone inside because he doesn't want this to turn into another Waco.
Yeah.
That's basically like another touchstone for this movie is Waco. I mean, obviously, but then Cheyenne.
This is that group.
Cheyenne comes running out. She gets taken like by an agent. She says all she wants is to get the kids out of the house. So I have that being the end of Act 2, because Act 3 kicks off with, this is literally his character name in NMO database, Kevin the Tactical Agent.
Yeah.
Talks with Keenan, and Keenan is basically setting up a press release ahead of time so that they can just go in there and kill everyone.
Yeah, they're literally planning murder.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this movie. This is one of like the genius stuff I'm talking about. It's like, well, you're supposed to be on the side of essentially the government, even though not everyone likes the government all the time, and I get that. They don't like the things they do. But they're not randomly murdering people for no reason or for crazy religious beliefs. No, they're going to randomly murder people so everyone gets their pension and gets to move up the square on the courtyard. It's like, that's just as insane. It's just like, yeah, we're going to murder people. We are actively like, because John Goodman's like, I need a memo or a text or something in writing, not just your say so. There's no way. But he's saying it's like, I'm open to this as long as I can cover my ass.
Yeah.
Disappointing. It's like, oh no, really? This was supposed to be our center. It's like, wow. And he even says, it's like, look, I got to get my pension. You know? I'm not going to have my wife clipping coupons till the day she dies because I decided to take a stand. You know, these people are fucking nuts. Who cares? Or something. You know, it's that's the thought process. I can't do a good Goodman, which is weird because we have the same body type.
And then the agent that's like covering Cheyenne, he's like conflicted because he basically just gets told to kill an unarmed woman. And so he's like trying.
Psychotic. It's like, okay.
And he's like, just run away. And she's like, no, you're gonna kill me. And so he like pulls like a third gun out, like a second backup gun.
Throw down gun.
and then like
not registered to him. I guarantee you. That's what they're supposed to imply.
and then grabs her to shoot the gun. He doesn't shoot her. He just wants to get some gun residue on her. And then tells her to run off. But then at that point, like Sarah comes up and just shoots him in the back of the head. And then they're like back in the house, and Sarah's angry at Cheyenne.
Just a gun. Like, I'm just gonna punch this gun out, and shoot you in the face with her head with it. Which makes sense because you're using a handgun. So it's like, it's the most accurate way to use it is just press it against what you're shooting.
Use a gun like a nail gun. You got to be accurate. Yeah. Sarah's angry at Cheyenne for betraying them because she wanted to get the kids out of danger. And so like they
get
argue
on your hands and knees and pray. Like you're, because we all know what happened at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco.
Yeah,
the kids burned alive. Like we know that really happened. That's not a made up thing. So that's like what makes this effective too. Is like, oh, we want to get the kids out because we already know, like these guys are just gonna storm the place and burn it to the ground or whatever.
Yeah. But Sarah ends up giving her the gun to go like join the fight, but then she just walks off and doesn't like, doesn't back up that monitoring on her. She just walks away. She's got to go grab another gun and join the line to shoot at the cops.
Yeah.
Sarah and Abin share a moment as they're trying to like hype themselves up.
Which is crazy because they have all these. I mean, I know these are like After Effect, like plug-in things. But it's like the house is just being riddled with gunfire. And they're having a conversation kind of at normal, like conversational tones. Just every so often flinching down because, the house is just being shredded with gun. The volume of gunfire in this movie is like, oh, both of these sides would have run out of ammo a long time before. It's just funny. It's ridiculous.
But, but this is like this is what exactly Abin wants, because basically, like, if he's getting shot at by the government, it's like, well, then I'm the victim here, and I can respond any way that I want to.
And what does Sarah say? Like, if you die in the fire, or does he tell Sarah this? Like, if you die, it's basically like, I can't say this word, but like with the terrorists die doing terrorist stuff, they go to terrorist heaven.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same logic. It's like, well, if you die in this fight, you have a mansion in the afterlife or something. And it's like, oh yeah, that's how you get people, get their heads in the game.
Then we cut to Cheyenne. She's releasing Jacob to try to like make a deal with him at gunpoint. This is where Jared.
Like, they're dead. They're both gonna die. Their deal making suck.
Well, Jared learns his friends are dead, and then Cheyenne admits that she's like done bad things, but she can't stand letting the little kids getting killed. So that's kind of her whole thing. Her whole thing. It's like the babies can't die.
Which is like, I love the twisted logic from all sides in this movie. all these people are crazy.
There's also, we cut back to Abin. He just like, hey Sarah, can you get me some sweet tea? And just in the middle of a gunfight. And she's like, yeah, okay. Just calmly does it. So.
And I like how he's using like a bolt action hunting rifle with a scope.
Yeah.
Like he just occasionally leans out between quips and like, well, he's the one who killed Kevin Pollak.
Yes, yeah.
He started the fight. He's like, come on, let's go, after he shot
he kills a cop and then taunts them. It's like, hey, come and get it.
Yeah. John Goodman's like, I'm trying to talk him down. And it's like, well, that obviously didn't work.
There's some great.
I did like how he was talking with tactical agent, which is Kevin Alejandro was the actor.
Yeah.
And he's like the guy's trying to moralize him with him, and he's like, you know what, fuck that. I still got a part of Agent Brooks' skull in my arm. It's like, I'm not making deals with these people anymore. It's like you sort of understand everyone's thinking from their weird perspective, but
and once a gunfight starts,
like Kevin Smith is great at dialogue and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's, you understand what everyone's thinking, even if it's crazy. It's like, well, this is why they're doing this.
We cut back and Jacob tells Cheyenne to go fuck herself. It's like, and
Yeah.
dares her to kill him. He's like, why am I going to help you? How can I help you? Because she's basically telling him like they're gonna come in and kill all of us just to cover it up, and she's not wrong. Even though she's part of the crazy cult, she knows exactly what's going to happen.
And he responds appropriately, good. Well, I hope they do. I'm not gonna help you. You're crazy. You're part of some evil clique. That
But then Sarah comes in, she sees them like kind of talking to each other, and then she starts beating up Jacob, and then Sarah gets shot like wrestling with Cheyenne with the gun. Cheyenne tells her sister or somebody or cousin or something to take the kids to the attic and barricade them in. Then the tactical team starts breaching the compound, so they're like breaking through the fences and moving in. Some of the church people, including Kevin Smith's wife, is playing a character here. Go to the roof to fire.
Forgot. Yeah, that was his wife. Yeah.
Jennifer Schwalbach is her name. They go to the roof to fire down on the agents, and here's where Sheriff Winan is in his car just crying, and then his brain just gets splattered all over the window unceremoniously. So,
I'm like, good, he's dead.
Most of the church are getting killed. Jacob and Cheyenne like run out to surrender themselves to Agent Keenan, and then Kevin, the tactical guy, shows up and just executes them both. Shoots her
like,
in the head.
Face, yeah.
And then there's a moment.
More gross if he did it, with them laying on the with their hands and knees in the back of the head.
Yeah. But he shoots Cheyenne first. But it's like, okay, well, that's surprising. And then Jacob's just kind of standing there. Is like, what'd you do that for? And there's just take a moment for pause. And he just shoots him too. And so, yeah, so now all the kids from the opening are now dead.
Yeah.
And then we have like probably like the greatest like punch in. We have loud horn noises start playing, and immediately you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Because everyone's
you don't know about like the horns of Megiddo.
Well, everyone's ears are getting hurt, so there is like seemingly a supernatural element to what's going on here, which is like, okay, what turn is this movie gonna take? And so yeah, the church inside, they hear they hear the horns too, and they start celebrating. He's like, he's calling us home, and he tells everyone to drop their guns, and they start walking outside, and he's kind of like doing a little jig as he's walking too, spinning around, as the ATF agents are all coming pointing guns at him. And then Keenan's yelling at Abin, and it's like in this moment, it's like Keenan's like really affected by the loud noise, and then Abin isn't. So there is kind of a thing like, is there something special about Abin and his group that they're not affected by this horn? There isn't, but it's an interesting, it's an interesting composition here. And then basically Abin explains that like that's the start of the rapture, like the four horsemen of the apocalypse have been loosed, and these are like the horns. And then Abin gets in close to Keenan and then dares him to shoot him. And then we get a voiceover that plays, says, Agent Keenan, and then what happened? So now you realize, okay, something supernatural has happened.
Yeah, the end of the world didn't happen.
So we cut to like basically what's later on, and it wasn't the end of the world, and Agent Keenan is being interviewed by a couple other agents about the incident. Here they mention that Keenan had headbutted Abin in response to him being so close. So that they admonish him for not following orders to just kill everyone. So, and then also like, Keenan gets is getting like relieved of duty, being put on suspension, and is basically being promoted. Yeah.
Washington. To the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Fire.
Yeah. To Keenan's confusion, he makes the statement, "You're still going to kill them," which is a wild thing. It's like, wait, they arrested them and now they're going to execute them? That's not how the government works. But then the agent explains that because of the Patriot Act and this church,
the camera off first.
Yeah.
Quickly,
because this church is now classified as as like being terrorists, they can basically indefinitely move them around to secret prisons for the rest of their lives and not ever have to worry about prosecuting them. Essentially, that's what they say, which I don't know if that's true, but it feels true, which is a lot of this movie.
I mean, I'm sure there's more detail and minutia to it than that, but for all intents and purposes, it's true.
Yeah, but we expect that to happen to, like, people from foreign countries. They don't expect that to be happening to American citizens, though. So,
well, that was kind of unique in the context of this movie, but in terms of what's been going on in the last like 4 years, it's like, oh yeah, there are actual dangerous American groups. They're mostly stupid, but they're still dangerous.
yeah.
They can do kind of like a big, like, just a big ogre that goes nuts at the market. It's like, well, there's no planning or forethought there, but it can be very damaging. We still have to deal with this.
Also, there's a point I think it's not never really mentioned here. I mean, it's vaguely alluded to. They talk about modifying weapons, which is why the ATF was on the church's case. Is that, like, when we get to the shootout, like, most of the church has fully automatic weapons, which they've illegally modified, which is why the ATF is on them.
Yeah. Contrary to what people think, fully automatic weapons not generally available in the United States. Despite what movies and then TV will tell you. I always love those news reports. He had an AR-15. He went into said building or wherever this happened with a fully automatic weapon. I'm always like, what? Where did he get that? Oh, was he a foreign-based terrorist? Oh, it wasn't a fully automatic weapon. Because you can't have those unless you have weird licenses. And
unless it's like pre-74 or something, or whatever the cutoff is.
Yeah, whenever Ronald Reagan, by the way, banned their general sale. Like, people don't talk about that when they talk about he kept your guns away from. But yeah. So essentially, in the end of this, with the John Goodman hearing and stuff, I like it. It's like, oh, the bureaucrat assholes still kind of win.
Yeah.
Only one character we sort of like, he's going to take a week's vacation and then he's going to be promoted. So Eden getting his pension, which is important. It is important, actually.
Yeah.
I was jealous because I got 18 years and I'm going to get a pension. And I'm like, fuck, I got 25 years and I still have to pay for mine. You lucky bastard.
There's also this where I explained that the horns were some college kids running like a co-op compost thing. They were like, they basically are too smart, and so they like replicated some stuff from scripture and got a giant horn just as a gag, and so none of this is related to anything that just happened to happen here. So,
and they even asked Joe Keenan, the Agent Keenan, in the end, it's like, so they had no idea the shootout was going on, and he's just like, no. Probably the weakest part of the story, but also the coolest part at the same time.
Yeah, it's a reasonable explanation for what would happen, because what you're expecting was like, oh shit, like what, the apocalypse is going to suddenly happen. It's like, well, they don't have the budget for that, so of course the apocalypse.
Which is actually how it was written, that the apocalypse would happen, but of course they were like, hey, these Red 5 cameras released, like, they were $35,000. Like, oh shit, okay, we just got to play weird sound effects that actually like don't exist in real life. We're just putting them in the movie later. So everyone looks surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that sound is so crazy and effective. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
It's very close to the sound that they make in the War of the Worlds, the modern reshoot that Spielberg did like 8 years later or whatever, or however much later it was. So it's like oh, I wonder if they cribbed that idea from this, because it's not the same. But when you first hear it, you're like, wait a minute, where do I recognize that?
Yeah.
But it has less of that resonant, like, I'm calling to something quality that War of the Worlds did.
Yeah. But yeah, the trivia says, I don't know this, and maybe Kevin Smith said it, but like half of what Kevin Smith says is like not a lie. It's just Kevin Smith says a lot of things because
fueled fantasy.
Yeah.
The most like abject part of reality. Or the best part, because like, I'm having to buy a new stove because my stove quit working on me after 25 years. Piece of shit. So, but I have gas. I'm all gas. I use gas all for everything, and I got to get one before they're gone. And people have told me it's like, oh, they're getting rid of gas ovens. Why is that? And I said, probably because it's a lot harder to turn off gas than electricity, so they can control you better. And I've had people say, no, that's not it. It's because of pollution. And I'm like, well, you live in a nice world, and I hope your version of that is true, because what I believe is like much darker and more sinister. So when Kevin Smith says like crazy stuff, it's like, well, that's just a real optimistic. I hope he's right. Probably not how the world works. Yeah, go ahead.
So essentially what I've heard described as original ending is like when that sound starts going off, there's a little while later where they start to meet, like the ATF and start to meet up again. They're not clashing. They're just kind of like, what the hell's going on here? And then all the church members and all the ATF agents, except for Keenan, their heads and chest explode, much like when in Dogma, when people hear the sound of God. Like, that's what's supposed to happen to everybody at the end of the movie.
Oh, they couldn't get Alanis Morissette to show up?
and then Keenan's supposed to like open his eyes to see like a giant angel, like I don't know, like 20 feet tall angel with like a sword, like cutting somebody's head off or somebody. And the angel just puts their finger up to its mouth and goes, shh. And then like the four horsemen would like descend from the heavens or whatever. That was one of the ideas for the ending of this movie, which would have been amazing. But of course you can't do that.
Well, see, I like, again, the bureaucrat assholes win ending, because again, that's my darker reality of it's not angels in the end of the world. It's just a bunch of bureaucrats, a bunch of bean counters.
But I think like what's the name? I'm gonna have to look up that movie because I always forget what it's called. And now I'm forgetting everybody in it.
What's it about?
Bill Paxton directed it. Let's look up Bill Paxton.
Thunderbirds?
No.
Just kidding.
Frailty. So,
that's a cool movie. Okay, yeah.
Super spoilers. Stop listening if you've never seen Frailty. I'm about to spoil
and
Frailty.
Watch it. Please watch it.
Watch it. I'll give you 5 seconds.
Mom, Dad, quit listening.
In Frailty, the whole time is like a guy is going crazy and convinces the children that they need to kill the demons that he sees, and it's obvious that he's crazy. And at the end of the movie, it reveals the demons are real, and that is fucking crazy and insane. His like dad was right.
Because he sees these two kids, it's like they're the most horrible thing you could imagine is true. And these kids are like, Dad was right. It would be so much better if he was crazy.
Yes.
Rather than demons are real.
And so that what that movie has done for other movies is that leaving that little possibility is like, wait, what if the crazy guy is right?
Yeah, it's everything now.
Yeah. And no one ever follows through on it because you can only do that so much.
Yeah, it gets lame after a while.
Yeah.
People are like, yeah, this guy believes weird shit.
So had they done that ending, this movie probably would have been like way more infamous and like a bigger cult movie, but it's still good for what they did. You know, Kevin Smith wrote the cheap way out of this movie that he could, and he did. It still works. So,
and I like it. I like the bureaucrats win because I like the dark. That's the darker ending. Angels coming and taking us all to heaven and releasing us from our hell on Earth. Cool. It was like, sorry.
Yeah, in this story, hell continues. It's actually worse.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people filling out paperwork. Hey, you're promoted. You were gonna kill a room full of like weirdos and kids. It's like, hey, guess what? You got bumped up. You're CS11 pay grade now. Good job. You made it. This is how it works.
Also, this is where Keenan tells a story of like some dogs like killing each other over like a bone, even though they knew them their entire lives or whatever. And he's just saying like, yeah, sometimes people do extreme things for weird reasons. Actually, I forget the whole point of that. I didn't write down. So.
Well, the thing was the two dogs were brothers. They were actually born. They were siblings.
Yeah, the same litter.
And the same litter, and their whole lives they were the most laid back, whatever kind of dogs they were, some kind of retrievers or something. And like one Thanksgiving when he was a little kid, and this was John Goodman talking, and he's like, you know, these dogs knew I loved animals, and I never finished a meal. And I'm looking at John Goodman, and I'm like, I don't is the hook for your character, but could be wrong. And he's like, yeah, I had a bone left, and I threw him the bone, and they basically like tried to rip each other's faces off. Because it's like that's how people act when they feel entitled. Same as those dogs. It's like that was the thing is like evil can come in any shape and size as long as people feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
which is a cool message. I like that kind of stuff. So,
and then we cut, and then we got to Abin, who's in a prison cell singing hymns to himself, and they really hold on to long enough. And the final line of the movie is Kevin Smith yelling off screen, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
Which is similar to what he did when he was on Bill Maher and somebody went nuts and he was in the audience and he was like, "Dad, shut up." You know, it was great. I think they were debating religion or something, you know, all those, sympathetic Bill Maher topics that nobody gets agitated about.
So yeah, that's in the movie, and yeah, this is the
best Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah, this is,
you know who Kevin Smith is, and again, a guy I really like, not knowing him, just knowing his persona. I like his persona.
Yeah,
and I've enjoyed many of his early movies. I liked Clerks, I liked Dogma, and I like this, and I don't like a lot of his other stuff. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm glad he's still alive. I'm glad he didn't die on stage.
Yeah,
even though now he looks a very strange looking man now.
He lost a lot of weight very quickly, so he's very gaunt, and he doesn't look like he has any muscles, and he went vegan and all that stuff, and he walks all the time. So yeah, he looks very weird. But that's what happens when you lose weight incredibly fast. So you have a lot of skin left over and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know what his body looks like, but I just know facially it's like that doesn't look like Kevin Smith to me. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, but I can't really talk. Recently myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, I look like a 50-year-old guy that's losing a lot of weight quickly.
Kevin Smith actually got the most healthy in his life, but he looks like he is incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm great.
It's like if I was casting a movie about people in some kind of like Russian gulag, but it was American actors, it's like Kevin Smith is going to be in that movie. He's going to be the one guy talking about how, like in the Solzhenitsyn novel, it's like you can use the potato peels to make vodka. That's going to be his like line. Because he's looking weird, but I hope he stays alive. I don't wish anything bad on the guy, but
yeah, I mean, the other thing with me and like Kevin Smith is that, you know, the weird parasocial relationship I was able to have with Kevin Smith, where I was like, you know, because I wanted to be a filmmaker, so I paid way too much attention to Kevin Smith, and none of it worked out. And it's not Kevin Smith's fault, but it just feels like.
Oh yeah, he was like my Ridley Scott was your Kevin Smith. It's like, but I never really wanted to make movies. I just wanted to enthusiastically follow a director.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had a deep and abiding thing with this guy, and
well, I mean, Kevin Smith really did do it by himself. He didn't like secretly have like parents or relatives that had millions of dollars, and he just like that didn't fit the narrative, and so we just left that out of the story. Like, no, he literally he made a movie off of credit cards that he basically probably illegally opened up multiple accounts of to pay for his movie.
Which is cool.
He paid for the movie himself. He was talented enough to, and like the only thing that he had in his advantage is that he lived close to New York, because where he lived at that time was kind of seen as a shithole, and then slowly became like, now that's one of the most expensive places in the world to live.
Oh, Red Hook, New Jersey?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh yeah, because it's like just across the bay from New York. So it was like cheaper to live there than to live in New York, but you're like a 30-minute car ride from New York.
Oh, is that like the Copland areas and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think in south way, and the Copland areas are like north or something like that. I can't remember, but
Yeah, those places are all mythological to guys like us.
Yeah.
Because we live in places like Ann Arbor and like the middle of Iowa. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody knows who these people know what Ann Arbor is, and they know what Ames is,
But there's like the section of New Jersey that's like almost richer than places in LA, because they're just like, we like the city of New York. We don't like live in New York. So we want all the advantages of it, but we want to pay less. So like there's this place in New Jersey where they just built all their mansions near New York. And
oh,
that's like, and it's on the shore. So it's like you also get like, oh, I can go to the beach. So that's why all this stuff, just the price is just skyrocketed, because it has all these,
just like Sopranos land. Is that the same?
yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have to be in New York when the big one goes off, and trust me, it will. But yeah, you can have
But because they live close to New York, is like they could go find a theater and find an audience, and that's basically the advantage they had, is that like, well, we're near the biggest audience in the world, New York City, and they still had to hustle and get their way up there, and they just happened to pop up in a time of this like kind of indie revolution and stuff like that. And there's stuff about Kevin Smith's movies that are just like, oh, he's democratized filmmaking, because he just showed you like, you don't need a whole Hollywood crew. You don't even need fucking Hollywood. You can just do it yourself. Just figure it out. And
make it conversational, make it engaging and funny, make it relatable, and people will like it.
And, and I did try to do that, but like, yeah, to much less success, because you just can't do that in the Midwest. Even though like YouTube was on the rise, it just wasn't there. And like, and for me, like what the bottleneck is like, I could only exploit my friends for so long.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, it's like, it's hard to get the people to do a podcast where it's structured. It's like, all right, I'm only going to waste 2 hours of your time this week. Whereas like when I was making,
our podcasts are only based on familial guilt, because I tortured you as a child. I threw knives and darts at your head, and I feel bad for that now. It's like, well, I guess I'm 15 years now to make up for that.
Yeah. But like when I was making like skits and movies and all this other stuff and working on this stuff, like I would literally waste months and weeks of their time, and to no reward. And I like feel guilty about that stuff. And it's why it's like, all right, I want to do a podcast. It's structured. I won't waste any more of your time. Yeah. And this also won't go anywhere, but it's okay.
I mean, hard facts here, hard truth here. We weren't really doing anything that great anyway. I mean, I work in a fucking car factory in Detroit, and it's like, yeah, we're not like riding this wave of success. We want to share our brilliance and our great thoughts with everyone. It's like, we're only just not on drugs as compared to those immediately around us. It's like, yeah, we're doing pretty good comparatively.
Well, I always thought our shtick was overeducated blue collar people. But we just,
in my case, overread.
Yeah. But we just, even though it's like the internet should democratize this stuff, we just still can't accidentally fall into an audience. And I just don't have that kind of friends anymore where I can ask them to do that stuff. And it just never happens. And that, that's fine. That's just how things work. And like, it's not like, it's like, oh, we can't find an audience. Like, we don't even have people telling us we suck. We have nobody. It's just a void out there.
We just don't exist.
Yeah,
we're
freedom.
We're like the infants that never got baptized. So we're in purgatory, but we're not being punished. See, it's like, yeah. Do we suck? Probably, but no one's paying attention, so it's easy.
Yeah. So that was like, because like Kevin Smith had like people equally like me. It's like, hey man, you did it. Like, what's what do you suggest? What are your, what do you think I should do? And basically all the advice he gave, which was fine for Kevin Smith at the time he did this stuff, just doesn't work anymore. It's like anytime, the way Hollywood works is that if you figured out the system and become a success, they just close off that gap, and then it's like you got to find another way. So one ways to success is just, and that's why Hollywood is terrible. And even though like the tools to make films and stuff like that is even more democratized than ever, I didn't happen upon it at a time where I could exploit my friends with all these cool tools we have now. I just don't have that friend group anymore. So,
well, and the thing is now, and even then, but especially now, I'm just going to talk about now. It's like everyone wants to be like, oh, I want to get into films. and I'm going to be like Stanley Kubrick or the Nolan brothers. It's like everyone has this really unrealistic, outsized expectations about how smart they are, how entertaining they are, how good they are. And that's a problem in like mainstream entertainment. Whereas like I don't have any of those expectations. It's like oh, if I was making a movie or some kind of video presentation, it's like, oh, I love exposition, complex dialogue, and history. Nobody else likes that. That's not no general audience that's into like, oh, what if Dan Carlin made a movie, but he only got half the facts right? No one wants to see that, so I don't do that. But it's like I try to imagine it, and it's like, yeah, it's tough. But Kevin Smith found that like that magic zone in the 90s where it worked.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about Kevin Smith. And it's also what's sad later on because that magic zone doesn't exist, but yet he's still trying to inhabit it.
Yeah.
But it's hey, there's no footings on that bridge anymore. It's done collapsed. But yeah, keep walking across it.
Well, I was thinking about Kevin Smith. I mean, it's why he makes comedies. Is like, hey man, you know what's the cheapest thing to film? People talking and nothing else.
That's why I like Kevin Smith. That's why I like Quentin Tarantino, because it's all like, I mean, Quentin Tarantino makes hugely expensive Hollywood movies, but they're also extremely dialogue driven.
Yeah, all of his movies could be turned into a play because they don't require the budget they get, but they are better for it usually.
Reservoir Dogs is one of the best movies ever made because of the dialogue.
Yeah.
It's like the way it's shot and the, that cinema Rashomon, like everything's out of order stuff. That's cool. But ultimately the dialogue's great. And R.I.P. Michael Madsen. It's terrible that he's dead. I always like that guy.
Wait, Michael Madsen died?
Or was it Michael Madsen? Yeah.
No, you're thinking of Tom Sizemore, aren't you?
Oh, maybe I am.
Wait, no, let's check to see if Michael Madsen's still alive.
No, it was Tom Sizemore, you're right.
Okay. Well, they have similar energy, so I can understand.
They're the same person.
Half of Michael Madsen just died.
Half of Michael Madsen just died. But yeah, I mean, no, but back to like, yeah, Reservoir Dogs and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's why I like that. Because of the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like Clerks was kind of this, indie hit for, they spent like 20 grand on it and made like $4 million, which is like, well, that's a huge like return on your investment. And then, he made Mallrats, which is like just failed, but that seemed to be like a lot of like release issues. Cause essentially it's like, well, what he's doing is not that different from American Pie, which made hundreds of millions of dollars. And then like and he had like just a bunch of stuff like that. Well, then like you have like, Chasing Amy was a small indie hit, so that worked for him. And then Dogma was kind of a lot bigger, but still it like hit a certain audience, but never really, it could only go so far with it. And then you get to like when you make Zach and Miri make a porno, it's like, all right, he's got the cast. Like all these people make $100 million comedies, and somehow it just bombs. Like I don't necessarily like Zach and Miri make a porno, but it's not like better or worse than any of the other Apatow movies out there. So really, it should have made $100 million, but just didn't.
Yeah, I watched it once, and that was it.
Yeah.
I've watched every Kevin Smith movie once, except like Yoga Hosers.
Yeah,
I just didn't have access to it, and I didn't really see the point. Tusk, I like, sort of liked, but it was also like, oh, this is almost too weird.
Yeah. I never watched Tusk. I did see Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which is just an awful movie, but if you've seen all his other movies, you might as well just watch it. And then I haven't watched Clerks 3 yet for the same reason. It's like I'm just going to, actually the interesting thing he did with his latest terrible movies is that instead of like releasing them like in theaters or even like on streaming, is that he takes them on the road and kind of pairs it up with his Q&A stuff. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, and then apparently they make their money back that way, and then they eventually become a standard release on video on demand. But Matt said he went to one of the screening for Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and then so they watched the movie, and then he said Kevin Smith came out, answered 2 questions, and left. So apparently that's also a disappointment.
Oh no, really?
Well, I mean, Kevin Smith answering 2 questions, that might have been a 2 hour, an hour answer for each of the questions. So I don't know the exact how that worked out, but yeah, that's what he said.
I asked him a question, and we're talking about the spider in like Wild West again or something, or it's like, well, wait a minute. Those are all evening with things. Yeah. I of all the Kevin Smith movies, like what I own Clerks, I own Dogma, and I don't own Red State because you can't find it anymore. But I have all the evening withs.
Yeah,
like every one of them I have on disc, and I would pay like $50 or $100 or whatever it costs now to go sit through one of those. I want to hear it. I mean, I don't want to ask him questions. I don't have any questions. Yeah. It's just like I want to hear it. But yeah, that's Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Again,
so
I like some people really talk mad shit about him, especially if you listen to a lot of podcasts. There's people that talk about him like he is the worst person in the world. I don't get that, unless it's either 2 things: it's jealousy or misunderstanding. I don't understand it.
I think usually that what that's born out of is they might think Kevin Smith's annoying, because I could see you hear a out of context quote from Kevin Smith. It's like, this guy's an asshole. Like, that'd be easy because Kevin's very outspoken.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think, is his fan base is probably at least half of it is infuriating. And
I've never been a Kevin Smith fandom. Everything for me is a solo experience with like blinders on. I don't pay attention to anyone else who's into this. It's just like, I'm into this.
I mean, like, I was a big Kevin Smith fan, but even I knew too, like, if I'm just gonna like, here, watch this movie, I'm not gonna like, oh, this is the best movie. Like, no, just watch this movie, like it or not. You can't. But there's Kevin Smith fans out there. It's like, you've never seen Mallrats, shit like that. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't quite get it all, but
I don't see. Yeah, sometimes if there's an irrational hate for somebody, it's usually the fan base that's terrible rather than the people that actually make the stuff. So
yeah, I don't pay attention to the fan base.
Yeah,
that's something I learned with Star Trek is like a paying member of Star Trek like forums where I want to go talk about my love of Star Trek. It's like, oh, I've had people try to slam the iron door in my face so many times. It's like, hey, I like this. It's like, what's your background? Literature and history. Oh, well, you don't understand that, the quantum theory of the warp drive. It's like, I'm not having this conversation. I'm not here for a debate about fluid dynamics, which I'm not qualified to debate about, and I'm not interested in debating. I want to know like the motivations of the characters, and it's like, you fucking suck. It's like, okay, cool. I'm glad I'm paying for the privilege of being a part of this.
But like, and again, I'm saying like Kevin Smith, I don't think he's ever made a movie that's made more than $100 million, but you see him in the press all the time. So I imagine that's also can be infuriating to people. It's like, why are we listening to this guy? He's obviously not successful. Like I'm not saying that, but I can see that's how people think or whatever. So,
well, there's always something in my weird interactions with human beings that I've tried to emulate from Kevin Smith, and I call it the Kevin Smith pushback, where it's like you have an opinion, and then Kevin Smith disagrees with you, and he can do this thing, and maybe it's just like a whole East Coast thing that I don't get.
Yeah.
But it's like he can sound like an asshole, but be lovable at the same time. See, I've tried to do that in my life, where it's like, hey, you know what, dude? You're wrong, and this is why. Quit being a fucking jerk. And listen to me. I'm going to tell you why that you're not right. He's a master of that. I always fail. I fall flat on my face, where it's like, yeah, Nathan just told me he disagreed with me and like insulted my family or something. It's like, well, that's not what I was trying to do. But I always like the Kevin Smith pushback because he can do that. I mean, apparently he has done that, like with Prince, studio executives, people like he's dealt with, the stories I've heard about him. It's
Bruce
like
Willis.
He does this thing where it's like, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that. You know, you're a fucking jerk, but this is why I'm right, and this is why you're going to listen to me. I always love the Kevin Smith pushback, but I can never master it in my own life. It either comes off as being weak, or it's like, that guy's a dick. And it's like, God damn it. I've got to get in that Kevin Smith range where I tell you to fuck off, but you still like me. I haven't mastered it yet.
Yeah, only some people get to do that. Other people don't. So.
No, I'm either an asshole or I'm a fucking weak sauce. It's like I can't do it both ways. But that's again why we're trapped in the Midwest, because everyone's trying to be agreeable but not agree at the same time. It's a whole different ball of wax on the West Coast and the East Coast. So
yeah.
It's like, oh, we like these guys. How can we be like them? It's like, you can't be like them in Indiana or something, because people don't like it when you challenge their assumptions about, I don't know, Jesus, their familiar heritage, anything.
Well, yeah, it seems like, well, I don't know. On the West Coast, it seems to be like all kind of like vapid, like, you know, I don't know how to describe that. You know, they just want to vapid posers. Yeah. And then the East Coast kind of seems like everyone's kind of wearing their heart on their sleeves. Like, you know who I am. I know who you are. And the thing about the Midwest is there's a lot of like what people say to each other. And then there's just an imagined world of hatred and internal dialogue that nobody gets to be a part of. But it's always a seething background of every part of the Midwest. It's
you see, you're right. That's absolutely the problem I've had with people, because I'll have conversations about the things we're doing, the problems we're having, whatever. And then I hear this narrative about, well, I told him, you know, it's like, hey, fuck you, you're wrong, and this is why you shouldn't be doing things. And then I'll go ask the other person. It's like, hey, I heard you talk to Joe about that, and he was like, yeah, fuck off, this isn't the right thing. It's like, Joe never said that to me. And it's like, oh, it's an imagined conversation that Joe had.
Yeah.
If he had the stones to say that stuff, and now all of a sudden I'm the messenger of something that didn't happen. Oh, you know what Nate was saying? And everyone calls me Nate, even though I hate it. But you know what Nate was saying about, you know, so-and-so? He said Joe called Bob an asshole, but Bob says he didn't say that, so Nate's lying. It's like, no, wait a minute. Joe presented it to me as if he was standing up for, you know, the rights of all mankind, and is like, I kind of agree with this. What do you think? It's like, he never said that to me. So, yeah, I'm having fictional imagined, like you said, this whole imagined world of self-righteousness that never goes on.
Well, like at work is like, so like our boss, he's like pretty much the chillest person in the world.
Yeah.
But he's the boss, so he still has to be in charge of things and kind of be like, well, we can't really spend that money right now or anything. And that's kind of like
a seething anger. You just have
well, no, it's like the way people talk about him, it's just like, well, it's like they hold this position of the boss. And so it gets out like, he yelled at me. It's like, did he yell at you, or did he just disagree with you in the calmest way possible? But in your head, it was like, because also sometimes like, because
he called my mom a whore. Like, no, I don't. I just don't think he wanted to spend $150 on a drill bit. Two very different things.
And there is like somebody, because he is chill. Like sometimes he'll like come in and inspect a thing, and like, we just worked all day on something. Is like, and he'll just say, yeah, I don't think that's gonna pass inspection. And it just hurts you to the core.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the last 12 hours of your life, fucking wasted. He's not saying anything like that.
No, did not say that.
Assertion of
that's how you carry. That's how you carry the story. That's just how. Yeah, that's the entire Midwest. There's a whole vibe that gets carried on whether you're a part of it or not. So
yeah, this pipe join wasn't done right, or maybe this wooden, this frame wasn't coped right, but somebody placed a 500-pound stone on your back. If you're going to resent for 20 fucking years,
yeah,
which is what I don't like about the Midwest, because I just like to say things. It's like, it's either this or it isn't. It's like, well, you're being rude. It's like, no, let's just skip all this. Simplify by just saying, it's like, hey, I think you suck, and I think everything you do is wrong. Or it's like, hey, that one thing. It's like, maybe you can try a little harder. But it's never that. It's like the end of time.
Well, if
that's all I got.
If you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? And
yeah, how couldn't you?
And
Put this rock on my back by telling me I suck in the comments with no context. Don't give me any way to improve myself.
And I did not update this because there's been a change. There's no longer Anchor FM.
What the fuck?
It's not that it doesn't exist anymore. They changed the name to it. It's like Podcast by Spotify or something shit like that.
Awesome.
So if you go to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/dash. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong one too.
You're not going to listen to this. Fuck it.
If you go to verhoeveneffect.com, it'll take you to the correct place. The correct place is also podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/Verhoeven Effect. I guess they thought, they got to lead with Spotify because that's more popular than Anchor, so I'm guessing that's why they did that. Well, anyways, nothing changes.
Wait, are
it's
they
just
part of Spotify, or did they just...
They were always a part of Spotify, so I guess
okay.
they just kind of just rebranded it. Nothing's really changed. You can rate our podcast whatever you want, but on your platform of your choice. Remember, the only thing that the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you.
Because AI is positive.
At verhoeveneffect.com, we have listener support where you can support us at monthly stipend, either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 monthly stipend. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect.
Please do that. Help us become better people.
You can find us on YouTube.
My life's almost over. I need your help.
You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for
Rumble or Utreon yet, or
I can put stuff on there. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a TikTok. That's mostly because of just more weary of security stuff there. I should probably have an Instagram. I have it but I don't know how to use that stuff because I just don't do that stuff. It's it's what we need is another platform of 1 million people so we can also live in the empty void there as well. So
I'll do TikTok unless Chairman G starts watching our podcast. I like these two Americans. Their insecurity empowers me.
So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.
Well, that was great. I was just trying to be wild this podcast. Yeah. I hope I didn't annoy you or anything.
No.
I was just trying to have fun. Sometimes I like to do things.
Oh, that's what happens when we don't do Greed Factory for so long. Is Greed Factory starts seeping into the Verhoeven Effect.
Actually, I mean, I like Verhoeven Effect better in some ways because...
Well, no, it's more respectful of your time. So
yeah.